It's not no I love trips to Vegas. The underdog became the underrated. In my city, I'm paraded. Confetti dropping when I'm home. I'm floating down Tudor, floating on strong. Had so many rights they couldn't tell us we was wrong. Lamar Middle School, we was on. I got this line hard in my chest. I'm one of the best. They ask about him, they gon' bring up success. See, I've been fighting this stress. You ain't right, you get left. I'm good with my left, so I don't argue with refs. Cause just like EA, I'm in the game.
What's up? This your boy K Rick. We have an awesome, I always try to say interview, but it's not an interview. It's, I don't even know what to call it. Greatness, expert advice. It's something that we've been doing consistently every Tuesday. If you haven't already, tap into what Sean Olson at Equibala has been throwing down the last few months, weeks. It seems like months, it's probably weeks, but we have a lot of content that he's gone over, and every week it's building up one on top of each other. A lot of exciting information that, number one, if you're not bringing your note, pad and pen to these calls, to these lives, then you're missing out. And so without further ado, Sean, appreciate you jumping back in this week and giving us some expert advice.
Well, thank you for having me back. This has been quite an interesting little succession of, it's not even interviews, it's more just conversations. And so we're here having a little chat today. And the thing that I really am excited about for today is we're building upon, like Carrie said, the stuff that we've done in the past. So the conversation has progressively gotten more in depth, and it's built upon the topics that we've already talked about. So again, like you said, if you haven't watched any of them, go back and watch them. I would recommend all of them because week after week it's becoming more progressive into leading up to where we are now. And so today's topic is about the world, right? But the world is not your world. And so what I want to explain today, guys, is we live in a big universe. We live in a giant place. We call it Earth, okay? Even outside of Earth, there is an entire galaxy and hundreds of galaxies and thousands, and it's an infinite space, all right? We are very good at disconnecting ourselves from the rest of the universe and the rest of the existence outside of Earth, all right? But what I want you guys today to take home is the Earth is a big place, and you are a very, 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 very small piece inside of it. So the whole world is not your world. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's something that you need to pay attention to. All right? I don't think it's very hard to say, hey, you shouldn't worry too much about Mars. Because you can't impact Mars. Unless you're Elon Musk, and then you just get on the rocket ship and you go at people who are already on the game, right? But like you guys, you don't have to worry about things that are outside of your control. And this is the main message for today, is that we are going to narrow our focus. Okay, number one is we have to be consciously focused on the moment we exist in. So we talked about time not existing and being in this conscious moment of awareness. This is where we operate from all the time. This is our only existence. And within that moment of awareness, very little is impacted on the choice of right now. Now, there are compound factors that go into that, but all of the things that happen in the world do not impact you. And all of the things that you do not impact everything in the world. And so the reason I'm explaining this is because a lot of times we put our focus into things that we can't control and that are outside of our sphere of influence. Okay? And so realizing that the whole world that you live in is not all a consistency in your world. You have your family. It's probably a very small group of people. Your friends, depending on how cool you are, is probably also a very small group of people. Right? And honestly, if you got too many friends, you're probably trying too hard. You don't have that much time to entertain everybody in the world, right? So you got a small group of people that you identify with and connect with, right? And so as we get older, this world kind of becomes more and more narrow. When we're a kid, we start out with a big, broad focus. Everybody that we see is okay, and our parents have to tell us after a while, like, hey, the strangers may not be cool. All right? These are guys you don't know. These are the people that you might not want to deal with, especially if they're in a van with ice cream. You know, they're probably unless they're selling it to you and there's a whole bunch of other people around, you know, like you start to judge who it is that you want to spend your time with. All right? And so just because they're in the world or a piece of the world exists doesn't mean it needs to be part of your world. And so the more narrow you get your focus on what it is that you put your attention and time into, the easier it is to actually control the factors of what it is that you're spending that time on. And so if you sit down and you watch the news, first of all, I'm going to give you a really good suggestion. Turn the news off. Okay? I can tell you 100% if you miss whatever is on the news today, you're going to have 17 other opportunities somewhere else that it'll probably show up even without you trying, whether it's in Facebook or the same news feed played 17 times on every single other station around, the radio, your friends, like the
Welcome
world.
to the CNN effect, right? Like
Exactly.
Every 35 minutes it's replayed. So
The same thing over and over. So you don't really have to try that hard to catch the big stuff. And if it's big enough that you need to be paying attention to it, you're probably not going to miss it, okay? So if you miss the local news or even, you know, Good Morning America, like, you know, Michael Strahan is an awesome looking dude, but you know what? Like, if you miss him a couple of times, it's not going to really impact how your world goes today. But if you miss something that's close to you, you forget your wife's birthday, man, things are going to go wrong. All right, so we need to pay attention more close to home with the things that we are putting our focus on. If you're not already the best husband or wife or brother or son or spouse or whatever role it is that you maintain as a person, if you're not knocking it out of the park already, you got no business worrying about what is happening over in Iraq. Yes, it's unfortunate. Yes, there are some things that possibly could have long-term, big-scale impact in some way on your world. But here's how I spend my time. My number one question to myself all the time is, can I make an impact? If the thing that I'm trying to pay attention to is not something that I can impact, I'd put very little attention to it on purpose. Okay? When the elections for president were running, me telling people on Facebook which one I'm voting for doesn't really matter. The only impact I have is whether or not I'm going to vote. Me telling people about who my voter choice is just going to piss some people off who don't agree with me, and the other people don't really care because they already made their vote. You handle yourself, and you get really good at handling yourself, and it kind of seems to just work out the rest of the way. If you don't have the ability or the intention or the effort or the stream of income and support and all these things to go over to Iraq and fix their government and take away their problems or whatever, don't stress on it, right? And this is what it comes down to, is the things that we focus so much of our energy on most times won't matter here in a couple of years. And so I got a 5-year rule. If it don't matter in 5 years, don't sweat it too much, right? There are things that you need to pay attention to build that future version of the life that you anticipate happening. We want to try and design our world. It's exciting, right? But the things that you can't control are the outcome from your steps. The only choice you get to keep making is what steps are you going to take? And the steps that you're going to take need to be focused around the things that you can influence. All right? So if you got kids, you're a huge influence. And the steps that you take on a daily basis need to be heavily, heavily weighed before you put an influence in front of your children. Because they're paying attention even when you don't think they are. All right. My kids come to me all the time. Hey, Dad, remember when you did this thing or you said this thing or whatever? It's like, remind me about it because I don't even remember it myself. You know what I mean? And they come back and they tell you the thing and it's like, oh, yeah, okay. And then like we go down that path. But if somebody...
Wait till you're a teacher in a classroom.
See, there you go. Yeah,
like 30 kids call you out on something that you said.
Amplified impact. Yeah, you got to really pay attention to, you know, what your exposure and influence is. But those pieces that are involved in your world are the only ones that you need to pay attention to until you have absolutely mastered them. When you don't have to think about the process and things just pop off without a hitch, without you having to really pay attention, that's when you've got it mastered. Almost never do you get to that situation, right? There's a reverb, there is a change, there is a progression that happens in everything that you do because what you did to get you here isn't what you're going to be able to do to get you there. So you have to constantly adjust a little bit, but the stuff that is within your control, get really good at that first. You know, if you have a job, hopefully you have some way that you earn income. If you're already not at the top of your field if you're income earning situation, whatever that job title may be, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be an employee, whatever it may be. But if you're not already crushing it in that thing, don't worry about what somebody else is doing with their money. How this dude over here makes money and what his status is in his bank account does not reflect anything on how well you are doing your thing. And nobody gives a crap about that dude at your job, right? Your boss cares how good you're doing. What are you bringing to the table? How are you positively impacting people? What contribution are you making? Right? That is what matters to the people that are connected to you. And so we can expand this out into finances. We can expand this into health and wellness. Like, it doesn't matter if David Goggins runs 50 miles a day. It's not going to make me in any better shape. I still got to go out and do me to make me in better shape. So it doesn't matter what somebody else does. I don't care how many times a day The Rock works out. It doesn't matter for me, okay? I get my workouts in the way that benefits me and that works with my situation. Same with relationships, guys. The whole world is not your world. Your spouse's world is not your world. Your spouse's happiness is not up to you. Your happiness is up to you. Your spouse's happiness is up to them. And you guys decide to have your happiness and her happiness come together into a mutual engagement.
That's been one of my biggest issues, and sorry to interrupt, but that's been my biggest issues that I've struggled with over the years is just trying to please everybody, right? You always want to be that one that's always trying to be motivational and trying to bring people together and always wanting to serve and lead and care. You can oftentimes get caught up in trying to make other people happy. And, you know, when you go down that route, you know, I always heard this from Wake Up Warrior, I'm a leader, not a savior. I'm a leader, not a savior. And those that try to save always try to make people happy, right?
Those that try to save always drown.
Exactly. Exactly. So that gave me perspective in that moment. It's just like, I've got to make myself happy, because if I can't make myself happy, everybody around me is going to be unhappy, right?
Sure.
Because I'm going to just be walking around dissatisfied with myself. So,
yes.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect point. And that's exactly what it comes down to, is like, especially in that spouse game where you have to figure out what it is that fulfills you in the world and bring a positive version of yourself into that interaction that includes your spouse. And she's going to do the same thing. And I'm just using the wife-husband situation here, but you can apply to whatever your situation is. And like, they're going to do the same thing. It's on them to figure out what is it that makes me fulfilled in the world. And then we just choose to have lots of mutual interaction. That's what their world and our world now comes together as, but it doesn't create one world. You don't have a world with your wife. You just are sharing those worlds together a lot more often than you do with people that you don't live with. All right? So your world is still up to you. Every piece that's involved in it, the structural design, the intentional focus, all of these pieces are within your control. And so if you simply focus on getting really good at designing what it is that you want your world to look like and designing the steps that you want to take that you think will design that world for you, you simply discern the step, take the step, and then reanalyze. Okay, cool. Like based on where I'm at now compared to where I before, does the goal still make sense and am I on track to get there? Reevaluate, decide the next step, take the next step. Look back, reanalyze. Does it still make sense to go in the same direction? What's the next step? Take the next step. That's all it is. That's how simplistic this gets down to, and you start to master your own world. And again, we talked about this before where, guys, focus determines so much. Because you can't be happy and sad at the same time. You can't be positive and negative at the same time. You can't be focused on your world and someone else's at the same time.
And I will tell you this is what I learned about focus, is you have to have the ability to say no in those situations. No, yes. Because I'm going to do this because this is what drives my happiness. So therefore, I'm going to take a step in this direction without even thinking about it.
Yes, exactly.
So when things start coming in, it's just like this. I made a definitive statement the other day. I've worked. Now it's time to get paid for the work that I do. It is no longer a pro bono thing that I need to do for the skills that I provide for people. And so in that moment, I have to have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to choose that opportunity because it does not pay me or it does not benefit me in the way that I've set up for my happiness, for my success, right? I have to put my own filter over what I decide and not apply or allow other people to apply their filter on me, right?
Yes, 100%. Yes. And this also comes down to the choice structure. And this was going to be a whole nother talk, but I'm going to slide this in because it fits the scenario. When you make one choice, that means you are excluding all other possibilities. The only way to choose one thing is to exclude every other possibility in that moment of decision. So your choice of what you are going to do based on what it is that you feel is going to take you down your path automatically excludes the choice of other people and whatever it is that they feel they want to put into your process. And if you get really good at choosing yourself and choosing your choice, nobody else can influence what it is that you're doing in your world. At least it's a lot harder to do. So you get really good at focusing on yourself and you will automatically exclude that outside influence. And then it just becomes a non-issue. You don't have to pay attention to what other people think or say or feel or whatever, because like what you eat doesn't make me go to the bathroom. Like I don't want to use the wrong words.
My question to you is, in those moments of lacking of clarity, like what do you focus on? Like, how do you find your focus? Like if you've lost it, let's just say somebody's out there and they've lost it. How do I find that focus? Is it just by taking the step, reanalyzing? Is it just that simple? Or
no,
what?
That's a great question. And that's farther down the road. So like this is kind of like, you got to go back a few episodes and look at what we talked about in the past, because determining, and this is that Christmas effect. All right. This is that starting point vision of what is it that I would like to have as part of my world? What are the things that fulfill me? Right? And this is where we get into that inspiration obligation factor of what do I have to do to get through today to pay the bills and put food on the table and whatever has to be done in those obligation sakes. And what is the fulfillment that I'm going to be driven by that becomes the inspiration, which is the things I enjoy in the moment of doing them regardless of the outcome. And once you start to identify what those necessities are, and a lot of us kind of already got that down. Maybe our job doesn't pay all of our bills. And so if you need something else to pay your bills, then that's what the focus is. What is it that I need to do to earn some extra money to pay the bills, right? But once we have kind of our base needs met, we've got the bills paid, we've got food on the table, we've got, a spouse by our side that, we are compatible with, whatever it comes down to be, then we can focus more on the fulfillment Okay, and this is what it really comes down to. This is the purpose of life, is to be happy. And that's that feeling of fulfillment that we're looking for all of the time. And once we start to identify what some of those situations are, then we can determine what it is that we want our world to look like. And this is where we start to invoke that why factor. Okay, the why is always the most important thing, because this determines, I can't say the word, this determines what choices we make. We look at, why do we want something? Because of this, because of that, because I'm going to feel good, because I'm going to get this result, because I'm going to step up my status, whatever the situation may be, because of this is the reason I'm going to go do this thing. And so if we don't have a clear vision out in front of us of what we want our world to look like, it's impossible to have a good focus of what steps we need to take in order to go there. So you got to get the big picture set up first. What the hell do I want my world to look like? Financially, emotionally, physically, relationship-wise, mindset setup, like day-to-day interaction. What does my hygiene structure look like? There's so many pieces that need to come into this. So we look at big picture. If I want to have the nice house and a fancy car and an awesome wife and all these things, like, pick one path. You can't change everything, not all at once. There it is right there. Hit that journal. That's the starting point for this. It's the base structure to get you started down this path so that you can understand, what do I want my world to look like? And once you create the vision, then you can start making some guesses. And this is the cool part, is we never know. Like, I don't claim to be psychic. I have no guarantee that what I'm going to do is going to result in a certain way. I have a pretty good idea, and I think I know what's going on a lot of times. But man, am I surprised a lot, okay? So we're out here guessing, and that's okay. And that's what it comes down to, is disconnecting from the results being the determination of success. We say we want to get this thing as a general idea of how our life works. We're going to come back and say, what step can I take to move that way? And then we're going to take the step. And did you take the step as that determination of success? And so when we find ourselves not sure, what should I pay attention to? What should I put my time and energy into? Number one is, how do you want your world to look? And you have to start getting real honest. And this is hard sometimes, because honesty leads to letdown, mostly for other people. And this is what Carrie was just talking about. He had to start getting real honest with themselves. Is it fair for me? Is it fair for me to give you all of my time and not get anything back? Should I want this more than you? Dude, if that answer is no, holy crap, there's no way I'm going to be here. If you're not here as much as I am or more for me to help you move forward, I'm killing myself, right? And so that's not part of what the vision looks like for me and what I'm doing with my time, right? Like, what are you looking for as part of your world? What steps do you think you can take to go down that direction? And then just take the step. And so that motivation always comes back to reevaluating the vision. The vision creates the why. I'm going to take this step because I want the acquisition of the vision statement. So if you don't have a vision statement for yourself, it doesn't have to be physically written out, but it can be. It definitely helps. But even if you can create the picture in your head of, like, man, I absolutely love baseball, and I just want to coach kids in baseball. I don't have kids myself. I haven't been around baseball or whatever. How the hell am I going to become a baseball coach and influence these kids, whatever? Like, if that's what your vision is for one piece of your existence, then you figure out, okay, like, how can I get around baseball teams that are, in this certain age group without seeming like a pedophile because I'm not bringing my own kid? Like, you may have some conundrums you got to work through, okay? Every step is not forward progress. There's a lot of side steps and adjustments and clear path or whatever. And maybe 7 steps in, you figure out, I really can't stand kids all that much. Maybe that's why I didn't have any of my own, but I like baseball, so I need to get into an older age group, or, you know what I mean? You just start moving down the path. But the vision of where it is that you want to go has to stay in the forefront, because as soon as you lose vision of that, as soon as you lose sight of where it is that you're trying to go, it's easy to get off path. We live in a world of information and constant stimulus, and we are just distracted all the time. People are so good at those hooks. they will put something in front of your face. It's like, oh, what am I doing? I'm just scrolling Facebook, and boom, there's a thing. Like, first of all, quit scrolling Facebook. You're not going to find anything. But secondly, like, those things are there on purpose to catch your attention and lead you away from whatever the hell you were doing before. And so if you weren't on Facebook with a very specific thing, like, I'm going on here because I need to talk to a person and this is our communication method, you're going to jump on there and you're, oh, there's a thing on Facebook, and oh, I'm going to scroll, and then here's a thing, and now I clicked a link, and now I'm on this website, and I just bought this $375 inflatable whatever, and I wasn't even really looking for it. Like, you know what I mean? It's easy to get off track because you don't have that vision of what the hell it is that you're doing. So the steps follow the vision, and the focus follows the step intention.
I think one of the big things that a lot of people, I mean, I'm going to talk a bit of science right now, but it's valid because you can see it all around the world and you can see it anywhere you go. And basically, it's the whole idea of harmonic resonance and like, if you take one drop in water, it makes ripples. But if you make another drop at the edge of that ripple as it's starting to fade out, it's reinforced. It's like having exactly, right? You get a bit of a wave, but that then creates an even stronger ripple that keeps going. And if you continue to do that on a habitual process of doing something every day at the same time, it becomes a part of that ongoing thing, and it reinforces itself. And that will continue to happen, and it just works that way. And if you make that choice, the same choice every day, and you keep being positive about it, then it's going to start becoming a positive thing in your life.
Yeah, my focus was I didn't know how to meditate, and I couldn't do it like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've studied all of the different levels, the different chakras, and it's just like, that just doesn't work for me. But you know what does? Going on walks. And that's been my focus for 2 years. It's just like, in that moment, I can stack my routines and I can please myself in like 4 or 5 different ways. It's just like, I have so much clarity now because I made the choice to focus on me in that moment. And, I struggled with that. I struggled trying to find that clarity and focus. And that's why I went to the meditation side of things, to clear the mind, so that I could focus on the things that I truly wanted to do. And I just found that my way of focus is not necessarily their way of focus. And, you have to trial by error. Like, sometimes I can sit down and really close my eyes, but there's a lot of times I just got to hit the door and go, because that's how my body and mind works. And if I don't do that, then I'm not going to have clarity. I'm not, period.
Yes. And both of what you guys were talking about is very similar messaging, similar to the very first episode that we did, which was called The 6 Factors of Conscious Response. And in that, step 3 revolves around the subconscious automated response when we deal with any stimulus situation. And so what this is when we go into new stuff, we have to be consciously paying attention. We have to make decisions in the moment about how we're going to respond, because we haven't trained ourselves yet. We haven't developed an automated response for that. And so if this is something that's new that you're doing, you have to pay attention more and more and more in the beginning to make that choice. The analysis process is very physical in front of you. Like, you can see all of the stuff and you're going down the path and you're very involved, and then you make a choice and you do the thing, right? But once you've done that walk a number of times and you realize, oh man, I've done this walk a couple of times and I'm starting to really feel good about doing the thing, and I'm getting this clarity, and I'm cruising through my schedule, and I'm, disconnecting from the stress and all the pieces that go into it. As you do that more and more, each time you're training your subconscious, which is the automated response method. And so when you get to that point where you no longer have to really consciously think about going for the walk and doing the schedule, there's not really like a structure you have to have in your head. You've just done it enough times now that it just comes out that way, right? And you start to create that habitual response method, that this is just how I do it because this is what works for me. And so even though You may start out with something that was a structure for somebody else because that's what you saw as an example. Every time you get into a situation, you're going to adjust for yourself. You're going to modify it how works best for you, and this will constantly change the vision in your head about what it is that you're going towards. And this is what's magical, is when you start to have this self-discovery. Because you see somebody else and they do it their way, and you're like, man, that looks really cool, and I'm going to try that. And you try it, and you're like, that recipe doesn't quite work for me. I got to have a little different spice over here, and this one wasn't quite cool, so I'm going to cook it a little bit longer and whatever. You know what I mean? And you adjust to the way that it works best for you, but you only do that by trial. You only do that by taking action. And so analyzing is only in the process of determining a choice. Once you make a choice, stop analyzing. Stop in your own head, okay? Figure out what step you think you might want to take and just go for it. Don't try to figure out what the hell is going to happen at the end. Don't know or think you know what is going to happen from what is happening in your action, okay?
And
just decide.
And I'm going to use this as an example. So all
Sure.
you baseball parents out there, all of you parents in general that think you're going to create this perfect little world for your child in which they're always going to succeed and win. They're always going to get a trophy for just showing up. That's not how the world works, period. And I can't stress that enough. Number one, in my own experience in life, you know, for my parents saying, you know, safe, secure job, go get a job that's going to pay you a teacher retirement. Like, I was led into that situation and guided into that situation, and rightfully so. I trusted my parents because they're successful. And but that life wasn't for me. That wasn't my world.
Yeah.
And I realized that, you know, a decade into doing something that I became great at, and that, to be honest with you, had a piece of my heart. I had other things that were calling me to make me happy. And so in that moment, I had to narrow my focus and say, what do I want? What is it that I'm seeking? What is the universe calling me to do? And also, in that moment, is just making the pure choice to stop analyzing what it is that other people want me to do, and just take a focused step in the direction that I wanted to go. So that's what I did. And every step of the way, it's just been a reanalyzation. My journey has, because it's like, I launched my mobile apps, that fails. Then what? Well, I got to pivot, and I got to take a next step in the direction that I want to go. Well, I've always wanted to do this thing called carpentry work. So all of a sudden, how do I become a carpenter? Well, you better learn how to read a tape measure, you know, to the point now, for the first time in my life, I can use my hands, and I can make money for my family just by using my hands and the expertise and focus that came from that. Right? So it's just like, in those moments, you have to do what makes you happy. I didn't desire when I first started growing up to pick up a skill saw, but I sure do love it now, because I know and understand, and I focused enough over a period of time that I became an expert in it. An expert, at least for me, to be able to build things around the house, to be able to build things that I can then in turn sell to somebody else to either service their need or want. Right. And so, I've experienced that multiple times, where it's just like, in that moment, stop analyzing, focus on what matters to you. Don't worry about your outside influences, and protect that, really protect that. Because, like, going back to the kids playing, and just getting a ribbon, like, the world's not going to give you a ribbon. It's very competitive out there. And, in order to be the best at something, to be that expert, you're going to have to focus, and you're going to have to narrow your focus. So just a little input from my notes.
No, I'm going to roll with one of the things that you said. And this is a key term. And this is something I want you guys to really take away from this is the competition is not with other people. The competition is only with yourself. And this is what Carrie just said, is I need to be an expert for me. How am I compared to how I used to be? Not how am I compared to how somebody else is now? You don't control someone else. You control you. So you have to determine what your vision looks like, what steps you want to take to go down that path, and how are you showing up? How are you performing? Is it better than you did yesterday? Is it different? Does it make sense? Is it going down the path that you wanted? Because like Carrie said, when he was young, he didn't plan to be a carpenter. Because when you're 5 years old, you only want to hit stuff with a hammer. You're not actually trying to make anything with it. You're just going to bash holes because it feels good, right? And then you get into, junior high and high school and like, you don't care about building anything because you're just trying to get a car and a girlfriend, right? And then you get out of high school and you get into, the college early adult world and you're just trying to figure out, how do I put a roof over my head? How do I get enough money in my pocket not to starve tonight? And then you get yourself settled to a place where like, okay, I got the girl, I got the house, I got food on the plate. Like, what am I going to do with my world? That, it's an evolution. So there's a constant reevaluation of where am I at now? Where do I want my world to be in the very near future time? And what steps can I take to go down that road? In that analysis path, maybe you can model somebody that was already successful doing something very similar, but almost never, even if you try, can you copy their path. Your path will be unique to you, and this is why the title of today is The World is Not Your World. Your world is unique to you, and it only contains pieces of the environmental exposure you have around you. So just because you know where India is on a map, the things that happen in India do not directly impact you. Yes, maybe something happens that impacts something else in like a chain down the road, maybe. But if you can't control that thing, it's not actually a part of your world. It's not involved. So focus on your world and the things that you get to control, what that looks like for the steps that you're going to take you down the path that you think you want to go on. And after each step, reanalyze, take another step, and you'll win the game.
And I like what you said earlier, unless I choose it to be in my world. So, for example, I have friends that I'm very close with, and their parents live in India. And every year, half of the year, they live in India, and half of the year they live right here in Southlake, Texas, with their wonderful son. And so it's, I get to go visit with them, and they're a part of my world because he's a part of my world. And so I choose not to worry about necessarily what's going on in their home country or how their government works or how I can affect that. I can't affect that world. But what I can affect is every time that I'm over there, listening to their perspective, hearing their approach, seeing how they treat their kids and the people in their world, right? How do they treat me? And it's like in that moment, I get to become a part of their world. They get to become a part of mine. And it's not so much what can I say to control their world. It's what can I learn that's going to allow me to appreciate, empathize, and sympathize with them to the point where, like, I can really take my focus off of, like, I don't worry about that anymore, right? When you're a kid and your parents say, they're starving kids in China, that's something that was said in my household. And like, don't, all you woke people out there, please don't throw me under the bus. But that's just what was said as a metaphorical way of like, you don't want to let somebody else down. You don't want to hurt somebody else. It's your responsibility. When no, in reality, no, it isn't. That isn't my responsibility. My world's right here. What can I do to affect the people that I can affect right here in my local community? Right. It's the same reason why we launched MVP Local. It was not to so much affect the outside world. Yes, we wanted to build an app that went to everybody, but it all started with our simple approach of just helping our local community, helping our world. What can we do in our world before the mobile apps are ready to just show that this is our focus and this is our intent? And so we went down that path and we did that. and we really impacted a lot of people because we focused on our world, not some outside world that we couldn't impact. So
Right. Exactly. So, and that's one of the big things to take from this today, guys, is you design your world by interacting with the rest of the world. Whether it be information that you see from some other country, a person you deal with directly in person, some other kind of whatever, if there is an interaction that you have within that outside piece, you're going to bring that into your world and figure out where does it fit. Some of it will become a piece of it. Some of it can be cast away and forgotten about. And most of the time, it's cast away and forgotten about, unless you continue to focus on it. So only the pieces that you want to become a part of your world is what you should actually focus on. If you don't want something to be in your world, it cannot continue to exist there if you don't pay attention to it. So if some dude cuts you off on the freeway, the only way that stays a part of your world is if you stay pissed at the dude. How he drives off and does whatever and cuts off the next person doesn't impact you. It doesn't have any involvement in what goes on.
Were you reading my mind? Because
I could see it.
Were you on my seat last night in the back seat because that was happening? It was raining, and I hate when it rains in Texas and snows, by the way, because these suckers down here don't know how to drive, and they were probably from California. Just guessing.
Most likely, yes. But that's what it is you have to retain that control of focus. And that is what controls the emotion that you operate from and the world that you exist in. And the world that you exist in is the impact and the influence that you bring out to the rest of the world when you interact with it. So control your world first, and you'll give the best version of yourself out to everybody else.
No, that's an awesome way to end it. Another awesome, conversation, really. We're just going to start calling these conversations, because I get to ask questions. Like I said, if you're not taking notes, like this gives me, like, I go back week on week, and before we ever jump on here with Sean or Misa, I'm going back and looking at what I learned last week, and I'm applying that to what I'm about to learn this week. And every week it just compounds itself, it stacks on itself, and it gives me more confidence to, like today. The biggest takeaway for me today was to say no and to focus on the things that you really want to do with your life. And for me, I want a family that's well connected. So what do I do to make that happen? Drive 5 and revive 5. That is my framework and method to do that. And so in that moment, I've made the choice, no matter what, non-negotiable, this is what I'm going to do, because this is the result that I'm seeking, not the outcome that I'm going to get. But this is the result that I'm seeking, and this is the world that I can affect. I can't get my wife to feel more connected with me, to feel more happy. Same thing with my kids. But what I can do is I can wash the dishes. I can do the laundry. I can, do loves of acts of service and kindness that fit towards our love language, right? And I can make those little incremental steps myself. And it's just like, I can't remember the marriage consultant with ClickFunnels by name, but it's their concept of I can only change my world. It just takes one. It just takes one person, right? So that's the same mindset of they are focused on, I can't control my partner. I can't control how they feel about it or what steps they choose to take. I can only choose to take my steps. So awesome. Another awesome conversation. Appreciate it, Sean. Rob, do you have anything else to close us out before you take us out on the outro? Any product updates? Any plugs, last minute plugs?
Let's see here. Well, we got Sean next week, of course, coming up on Tuesday next week, 6:00 p.m. CST or EST and 5 CST and 4 Mountain, right? I think I got that all right. Oh boy. Okay, and then of course it doesn't really matter because I'm in the middle of the morning. So, so yeah, it doesn't matter like where you are in the world, but we're reaching out. So like you guys are taking me into your part of your world right now. And like we were talking about that earlier. Yeah, like I'm in Asia. So I mean, like right now you're having a little bit of an effect on Asia. We going live, we're affecting people around the world, whoever's going to be able to listen to this. And that's one of the big things. Of course, go to wegive110.com for getting your own personal copy of the Personal Success Journal, where we're going to be doing that there. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, and you can also hit up Carrie or myself on LinkedIn as well. And with Sean, you can reach out to Sean at equabala.com, and he also has his Facebook page there as well. You can check him out. He's got lots of information there on health, mindset, food, exercise, generally anything you need for your life, I think, almost, other than fashion sense, maybe. I don't know. All right. We all wear t-shirts here. I mean, we're no fashionistas. Right. But yeah, so you can reach us all out there, wegive110.com and equabala.com. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next week. And tomorrow we'll have Misa on for our expert talks. She hasn't let us know what she's going to talk about, so it's going to be a big surprise, but you won't want to miss it because she always dropping lots of knowledge and truth about finances there. So anything else there, Sean? Anything parting words?
No, I appreciate you guys. If you're looking for a free meal plan or workout routine or a mindset reset structure, I'm giving all those away at equabala.com. Those are absolutely free, so those are resources you can download on the homepage there. So appreciate you guys having me out, and I look forward to next week.
All right. Have a good week, everyone.